We are about to enter the winter Christmas rush in the EFL Championship. 11 rounds now in 45 days. That is a game about every 4 days to take us all the way up to FA Cup third round weekend in week 2 of January. We will be at round 26 at the end of this. So even though we'll get the normal bores that say it's too early to discuss ... If you're not roughly in the right position in the table, you are not far from the running with 20 to go. So get your house in order, get that table in order. Let's have a look at this key period of the season. Get involved down there in the comments with your views. And if you enjoy the content here on the channel, make sure you are subscribed and hit that thumbs up button. So the schedule is mad. We return on Friday for the start of a 3-game week. So we're going to go 16, 17, 18. That is weekend, midweek, weekend. We get a midweek off, I believe, unless you are Blackburn and Ipswich. That's going to be a quiet week for those triggered, the moral police, the rain police for that cancelled game back in, God, when was that? September? Was it? Can't even remember when that was. Feels like a long time ago. Now, we then go round 19, 20, 21. That is also a 3-game week. We go weekend, midweek, weekend. Then a little bit of a breather in the run-up to Christmas. There's only that one round 22, between December 15th and then Boxing Day. That's a weekend round. Then even tighter, because we're going to go 23, 24, 25. That is Boxing Day, 29th of December, New Year's Day. That is Friday, Monday, Thursday. So that's an even bigger squeeze to our normal 3-game week. And there's no manoeuvring on that. I believe everyone plays on the same day on each of those, just 2 days gap between each of the rounds. That then brings us to January 4th and 5th. That is round 26. Blink and you'll miss it. And we will be 20 games to go. We'll be over the halfway mark. You'll have all enjoyed Christmas and New Year. And we'll be sat here analysing, presumably, a hell of a lot of manoeuvring and news in the Championship and the table. The form, let's break it down. I mean, we can do a 15-game block. That is literally the table where we go Coventry, Borough and Stoke are your 1, 2, 3, with Sheffield Wednesday, Norwich and Sheffield United, your 24, 23, 22. If you wind that back, let's talk the last 10 games. You're going to lose Middlesbrough and Stoke from the top 3 picture there. Your top 3 over the last 10 games, Coventry, Ipswich and Hull. Down at the bottom, your bottom 3, you're going to lose Sheffield United. It's Wednesday, Portsmouth and Norwich are your 22, 23, 24. They're so interesting, the patterns there. Say, slight trend down over the 10 games for Borough and Stoke, and Sheffield United moving out of the bottom 3. If you take the last 5 games, you're going to have Derby, Coventry and Wrexham as your top 3. So Coventry, clearly the best side in the division. Whatever form table, you're going to find them in the top 2 of that. And yeah, Derby have come strong, obviously 5-game win streak there. Wrexham manoeuvring through the middle of the table. And down at the bottom, yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, Norwich and Portsmouth. So the same 3 in a different order. And right through the season, whatever form table you pick, you've got Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday trying to sort themselves out. And an absence of Sheffield United there, you know, in the kind of short term and mid term, they look better than the bottom 3 side. They are still paying for the sins of the first 5 games. And maybe, again, we didn't mention Middlesbrough and Stoke. Maybe they're still trading on a brilliant start. Remember, if your first 5 games is an outlier, about now is the time it will stop having an influence on the league table. It certainly won't in 11 rounds' time when we've done this whole block of games. look, there's 4 teams that are complete wild cards in this next block of games because we literally don't know who the manager's going to be. And that is obviously a big, big thing. We mentioned Middlesbrough in terms of a team that are brilliantly positioned, 29 points from 15 games, second in the table. Somebody's going to be going in there as manager thinking, oh, I am a 1.8 points per game run for the rest of the season away from being a Premier League manager. It's also a bit of a razor's edge for someone because they're going to go in there, and if they drop down from second, everybody, fairly or unfairly, is going to say, oh, they were in the automatics when they took that job. Where are they now? So someone's going in at Middlesbrough, and they are 9th, as we've said, in the 10-game form table, as opposed to second in the 15-game form table, which is the league table. So we'll see what transpires there at Borough. Then you're going down towards the bottom to find the other 3 clubs looking for a manager. Southampton, small trend up there. They're 17th in the table. They're 14th in the 10-game form table and have won back-to-back games under interim boss Tonda Ecker. Of course, they're a year 1 parachute team. So the thought is that anyone who comes in, doesn't even do a good job, just does a reasonable average job, will, average for a year 1 parachute team. You'd think they'd be in the top 10, wouldn't you? Par for a year 1 parachute team, you'd think they'd be in the top 6, and decent for a year 1 parachute team is top 4, top 2. That's the deal. So anyone that comes in there and does a reasonable job is moving Southampton up the table, you would think. Swansea's an interesting one because they're in 18th, but they're 21st in the 10-game form table. So someone's got to come in there and arrest a bit of a slide. Else, there's not much wriggle room below them. Well, bottom 6 is directly below Swansea, and Norwich, obviously, there. I mean, you can flip the script for what we said about Middlesbrough, where everyone will look at it and say, if they're lower than second, oh, well, you dropped down in the table, didn't you? Norwich, surely it's a win-win-win situation there. I mean, we don't do that Mick McCarthy meme. It can't get worse, can it? It can. But surely someone can make Norwich better than they are at the moment, given their squad and their horrendous run of form. And the thought will be that they need to just move up the table, don't they, Norwich, and get out of the relegation zone. But it's very, very hard for us to kind of comment on those 4 teams when we don't even know who the managers are going to be. We can comment about Coventry. This is very formative period, this for Coventry. And I guess they're kind of, I suppose anyone in first place at 15 games is sort of champions elect, aren't they? They're in the box seat. They're 5 points clear at the top and they're 7 points clear. They've got a big gap there. So we're going to be looking at this, and this is stating the bleeding obvious. There's 3 ways this can kind of go for Coventry. There's the good, the bad, and the indifferent. I guess the good is if they continue in anything close to what they've done. I mean, even if they dropped off, they're at 2.26 points per game. If they drop to 2 points per game, then you're starting to look at a potential 100-point team. That's the good for Coventry. If they just go to average, they've left themselves a lot of wriggle room, as I'll say in the middle. They'll probably still be in the top 2 at the end of this run, if not top. And I guess the worst case scenario is if they fall off in some way, although every metric about Coventry, attack, defence, league table, points, individuals, managers, short term, long term, everything has Coventry right up there performing as the top team in the league, or, a team that is going to get promoted if things stay reasonably similar. The argument, I guess, against Coventry is it gets quite tricky. I'm sure you can find arguments to say everyone's got a tricky run of fixtures, but they're 6 away and 5 at home. And if you look at the points per game table for teams playing at home, Coventry have got to go and travel to these teams. They've got Middlesbrough, who are second behind Coventry, so effectively Coventry can't have a harder away game than Middlesbrough. Preston 4th, Birmingham 6th, Charlton 7th, and Ipswich 8th. I guess all the Coventry fans will say, but they recently went to Stoke, which is a very difficult away game, and won. Yeah, game before that they went to Wrexham and lost. So we'll see, and the fixtures are all going to clutter up. What I will say is Coventry's amazing start has left them margin for error, and always envisage, like, people look at a league table, envisage it like a race, and you see these runners in, like a 1,500 meter race, and if you go out and leave yourself a gap, you don't have to run that fast to be the first one over the line at the end of the final lap or whatever it is. At the moment, third place is projecting 82.8 Stoke, and that's 1.8 points per game. That is low for the last couple of seasons. That means you'd get promoted with 83 points, and you've needed ridiculous totals, well over 90. Two teams on 100 points last season, of course. So third is projecting 1.8. Coventry are at 2.26 points per game. So massive margin for error for Coventry, particularly over the next 11. They'd only need 13 points from 11. So they could drop off 47% and still be in the top two. I'm not sure they'll do that. I think there might be a little drop off for Coventry. There kind of has to be, doesn't there? If not, they are going to be up over 100 points, and we're going to be looking at 3-digit total for the second season running, and then if that goes even further, you start looking at Reading's 106. So you'd imagine some kind of regression to whatever the mean is for Coventry, but I think the idea is the mean is going to be very good. So it's very interesting up there at the top, because you've got a potential runaway leader there, but then you've got Middlesbrough changing managers, and if you take out the first 5-game run, which, as I say, is going to have less and less impact, maybe you've got someone trending down in second. So it's interesting there. Sort of around that gap, we sort of spoke about Stoke as being a bit like Middlesbrough in that they're obviously in the top 3 over 15 games, but not over the last 5 or 10. We'll see how they stabilise as a team with very different expectations now than they've had in previous seasons. But they've got the right guy in the dugout for stable. There's no calmer, sort of more level presence than Mark Robbins, is there? He's been there and done it. Below that top 3, you've then got what I would label the surprise packages. And I know fans get triggered by anything, don't they? They're an emotional bunch, football fans. But take that as a compliment, Preston, Hull and Millwall fans, because the betting markets had Preston and Hull actually tied in 19th at the start of the season for where they were likely to finish. 4th and 5th they are at the moment. Millwall a bit closer. They were projected by the bookies to be in 10th. They are in 6th. That's on the eve of the season as well. And they're absolutely flying, aren't they? And they're actually, a little bit more steady than you'd say Middlesbrough and Stoke in some of these form tables. The last 10, obviously we had Hull, didn't we, in the 10-game form table in 3rd. And all of them over the last 10 games, actually. Preston 1.8, Millwall 1.8, Hull 2 points per game over the last 10 games. So they're all in nice nick. It's not a splurge of points, a weird 4-game. We've said with QPR this season, where there's a very clear outlier where all the points come in one period and then everything else isn't very viable. It looks better than that for Preston, Hull and Millwall. 6th place is a bit of a squeeze here. Obviously, we had very high for automatic last year with the 2 teams on 100 points and Sheffield United missing out with over 90. It was then very low for playoffs with Bristol City getting in with 68. There's a bit more of a squeeze, as you can imagine. If second is lower, then That's raised up. 6th if the points are splitting evenly. 6th, currently you would need 76 to get into the playoffs. 6th is projecting 76.82 at 1.67 points per game. So you'll understand that all of the 3 quote surprise packages are all tracking nicely above that over the last 10 games. So you'd think they need 18 or 19 points from the next 11 to hang in there, which is doable, isn't it? 5 wins, 3 or 4 draws, couple of 3 losses. The issue is, will all 3 of those teams do that? I'm not sure all 3 of them will, but 1 or 2 definitely could stay in the top 6 of those 3. And they've really set themselves up nicely, Preston, Hull and Millwall, haven't they? Ipswich are fascinating. They've got an extra game. Now, will that be a help or a hindrance? Because, you know, when we laid out the 3-game week, midweek off, 3-game week, Ipswich are going to go 3-game week, no midweek off. So if you kind of tag them together, Ipswich have 3 of them in a row, which goes weekend, midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend, midweek, weekend. So that is 7 games in whatever it will be, like 21 days. Although I think there's a Friday fixture and whatever the number of days is, it's very, very busy for Ipswich. And if they can continue on the 2 points per game run that they've been, or even close to that, given they've got an extra game, and the possibility for a regression to the mean for any one or more of the 3 surprise packages, then you wouldn't be surprised, given relative budget of Ipswich this season with a year 1 parachute payment compared to Preston, Hull and Millwall, if there was a switcheroo there. But you can also argue it that Ipswich could be too busy and it could kill them just going game. They've got the squad to cope with it, though, haven't they? What I will say about Ipswich is there's some tricky matchups in there. And if Ipswich want to climb the table, they've literally got head-to-heads with 4 teams above them, and they play one of them twice. And that team is Coventry. 2 games between Ipswich and Coventry in this 11-game run is going to be fascinating. Ipswich also face Hull, Stoke and Millwall. So, A, if Ipswich want to climb into the playoff spots, probably need to beat a couple of those teams in head-to-heads. B, they can't lose those games, can they? You've got to at least go and draw the games, else, you know, that gap pushes out a little bit. So Ipswich is a fascinating one, sat there on 7th spot, isn't it? I don't want to go completely blow for blow down the table. Bristol City is all on injuries, isn't it? Bird, Knight and Williams. And get a couple of midfielders back there, hopefully, by the end of the run. Pring, Sykes, well, he's a bit more further forward, but Borges, in terms of that left-hand side as well, defensively, difficult. Cornick's out. McNally, he might be a little bit longer, but yeah, Bristol City could do with some players back. And then this next kind of block of 5, I want to take Wrexham in as well, because as we mentioned, in that 5-game form table, they're in the top 3, Wrexham. But you've then got Charlton, Derby, Birmingham, Leicester, Wrexham. So you've, interestingly, got all of the 3 promoted teams from League One last season. One of the year 1 parachute teams, and Derby, who I think you'd class as the hot hand in the entire division, being they're on that 5-game winning streak. Nobody can top that, not even Coventry at the moment. Charlton and Birmingham are tracking fine, as in to stay around 9th or 11th. Charlton is a minus 0.03 points per game on the differential if you take the last 8-game trend against the actual league table. Birmingham's is minus 0.02, so even closer, to suggest that those 2 sides are going to, you know, unless we get a big uptick or down, stay roughly where they are. There's no big trend either way for them. Obviously, Derby's trend up is absolutely massive. Is that sustainable? I mean, probably not. If not, Derby are going to be in the top 2 pretty soon, aren't they? Because sustain a 5-game winning streak, you've gone on a 10-game winning streak. That's unlikely to happen. However well you're playing, that's not many teams have done that. Aston Villa, with Dean Smith, Alan Kirbishley and Charlton back in the day. 10 games, that's really, really hard. I always say if you get an 8-game win streak, most teams that do an 8-game win streak get promoted if you actually look in history there. Leicester and Wrexham will finish off the kind of promotion chat with these two, because Leicester is an unhealthy trend down and Wrexham is a healthy trend up. Leicester are at a minus 0.27 points per game differential going downwards when you compare the last 8 to the actual league table. And Wrexham is pretty much the opposite, plus 0.23. So, there's an argument with all of those that Derby regress to the mean but could be back where they are. Leicester go the opposite way. They keep going down and Wrexham keep going up. And I don't know whether you can just reorder that 5, or you tell me, do we get a nice streak over the next 11 games? Can someone put 19, 20, even close to that 22, that magical 2 points per game on out of Charlton, Derby, Birmingham, Leicester, Wrexham? It's not a big gap. So all you'd need is a reasonably average run from any of these surprise packages, 4, 5 and 6, Preston, Hull, Millwall. And there is a playoff place up for grabs there, potentially. Fascinating up at the top. Let me know, particularly if you support one of those clubs, how you see it playing out over the next 11. Let's quickly round this out by talking about relegation. I don't want to go too long this morning. You've got places to go, things to do, haven't you? The first thing we can say is it is 2 places we're talking about. It's not a normal relegation season, because Sheffield Wednesday have got minus 4 points at round 15. So they are pretty much guaranteed to be relegated. I'd be interested in your overarching theories about what it being 2 places actually does. What does that do in terms of psychology, in terms of points total? Does it drag it a little bit lower? Will it make things a bit more complacent because or will it make people move a bit faster? Because you can say there's only 2 places to fall into, but there's 1 fewer to get out of, if you know what I'm saying. Flip it around the other way. With Norwich and Sheffield United, it's status versus form, isn't it? People can argue with me that Norwich and Sheffield United, in terms of finances and recent history, aren't a bottom 3 team. You can get cross about me saying that. It's an objective fact that they're not normally down there. And if you look at finances and income and turnover, they shouldn't really be down there. The fact that they are is not my fault. It's neither here nor there. But the teams are underperforming in comparison with those things. And if I talk about the status versus form dynamic, I'm not saying they couldn't go down. Luton shouldn't have gone down financially on paper last year, but they did. So it can happen. Don't think Birmingham should have the couple of seasons back there when they had the 4 managers and the Rooney debacle in Knighthead's first season. So it can happen. I said many times on this channel, 4 things: owners, size, bad luck, and chaos. Any sort of 2 of those 4 things at the same time will relegate any club. Doesn't matter who they are. You can get a complete disaster at any club. That one lightning in a bottle season and down you go. So with Norwich and Sheffield United, I still say if they can just perform averagely for their size, strength and squad, they won't be relegated, which is troublesome then for Oxford, Portsmouth, Blackburn, and then you can probably include Swansea, because they are trending the wrong way and they've got a very big call to make on the managerial situation. What I will say is Oxford and Blackburn, to me, have better signs over the last 8-10 games. I've just seen, we obviously had that 3-game win streak for Blackburn. I think, did Oxford go back-to-back, or did they do a 7-point week? Something like that, when they beat Sheffield Wednesday and Derby in the same week and drew the other game. I haven't seen that from Portsmouth recently. Although You can argue Portsmouth had a bad run. And I mean, the one win they did get was against Middlesbrough, wasn't it? But then I think they played Stoke and Coventry. I haven't got the fixtures in front of me, but various other teams who you could argue, they're either in a good moment or high up in the table. So in terms of it reordering, it doesn't look great if Norwich and Sheffield United do get their act together for Portsmouth at the moment, does it? They would be the ones you'd see moving into the bottom three. But then again, they could have had their bad run. You really, really don't know. And yeah, Swansea's fascinating. I've written down on my notes here, don't hire the wrong guy. If Swansea hire the wrong guy now, they could be relegated. We talk about owners and chaos, don't we? If you hire the wrong guy and you have to go into another manager, so say you hire the wrong guy, he lasts 15 games and you make another change, then that smells like owners and chaos relegates clubs, doesn't it? So Swansea need to hire the right guy and move back towards the middle of the table where we sort of expected them to be. But, 3 teams have got to go down every year, and people get very upset about you mentioning their team. And I'll quote George Ellick, who was brilliant on from Not the Top 20 on my interview I did with him, where he said, even the most negative fan at the start of the season says, oh, yeah, don't like the manager, squad's not very good, we're in a bad moment here. Where are you going to finish? 15th. Even the most negative fan won't have their team being relegated. But yeah, go figure. What I will say, going through to round 21, you have got round 16, Sheffield Wednesday versus Sheffield United. Round 17, Norwich versus Oxford, Sheffield United versus Portsmouth. Round 19, Blackburn versus Sheffield Wednesday, Swansea versus Oxford. Round 20, Blackburn, Oxford, Sheffield United, Norwich, and Swansea versus Portsmouth. And then round 21, Portsmouth versus Blackburn. And that might actually, I know I mentioned Sheffield Wednesday and Blackburn a couple of times, but for Portsmouth as well, that might kind of encapsulate what we were saying about them having a tricky run of fixtures. There you go. There is a look ahead to 11 rounds in 45 days, 12 games as well if you're an Ipswich fan or a Blackburn fan. Again, we will be at round 26 at FA Cup third round. Not a long time to pause for breath, especially when you factor in Christmas in 4 rounds from the end of this run after 7 of these games. It's going to be fascinating. Get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on how your club is trending and coming into this stormy season of fixtures. Are you optimistic? Are you not? Let me know down there in the comments. Make sure you've hit the thumbs up button and you have subscribed to the channel. More content this week. Sam Parkin will be back for the predictions on Wednesday. We'll hopefully be collaborating, speaking to someone potentially on Tuesday or Thursday as well. So plenty going on. And then the chaos begins. Winter 25-26. Blink and you'll miss it, and we'll be at round 26. So get in front of it right now here on the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel.